Hi, I'm Rachel, and today we're going to cover how to use the Unreal Engine Live Link plugin with Sisu Lab. The Unreal Engine Live Link plugin is going to allow you to get live position and camera depth of field information from Sisu Lab into Unreal Engine so that you can do things like live composition with a green screen and work with an LED wall to live update the LED wall based on where your camera position is, as well as that focus and iris and zoom information. With setting up this Unreal Engine Live Link connection, we'll have two parts. The first part will be turning on the connection in Sisu Lab, and then the second part is going to be setting up your Unreal project to actually get the information from Sisu Lab and use that in your scene. In this first part, we will first go over how to turn on the plugin in Sisu Lab. So in Sisu Lab, I'm going to go to the main menu and then go to Settings. And then once I'm on the Settings page, I will go to Systems, and on the right side, you'll see Plugins. So right now, I have Live Link on, so I could turn that off if I don't want to stream that position data out, but I'll turn that on, and then I'll select the gear, and that will allow me to either include or exclude the depth of field information. With a green screen, you'll likely want to include the depth of field information. With an LED wall, you may not want to include depth of field information. And so now we'll go over to Unreal Engine and we'll look at how to set up the rest of our project in Unreal Engine. Now that we've set up the Sisu Lab side and turned on the plugin in Sisu Lab, we're going to go through the steps to get your computer running Unreal Engine configured to talk to the robot in Sisu Lab. The first part is going to be setting up the SIM and the Ethernet connection to your computer running Unreal Engine. The second part is going to be actually setting up your Unreal Engine environment to work with the robot. The third part will be actually setting up your Cine Camera actor in Unreal Engine to be connected to the Live Link plugin. And lastly, you'll be configuring your environment and the origin of your robot and the origin of the camera with where the robot actually is in physical space. First, let's talk about setting up the hardware. So for your system, you will then, after turning on the connection in Sisu Lab, you will connect an Ethernet cable to the network aux port on the SIM. And so that is right next to the X66 connection on the SIM. And so connect an Ethernet cable from the network aux port to an Ethernet port on the computer that you have running Unreal Engine. From there, now that we're connected to that computer, we're actually going to need to set up that Ethernet connection so that it is set up on the same internet subnet as Sisu Lab and our robot. And so to do that on a Windows computer, you will go ahead and go to your network properties under Network and Internet Settings. And then you will select to change your adapter options, and then select Ethernet adapter. So this should be the one. You should see some kind of connection because you're connected to the network aux port for your SIM to that computer. And then I'll right click it and select properties. And then I'll select my IPv4 properties. And then I will, instead of obtaining an IP address automatically, you'll select use the following IP address. And for my system, I've decided to use 10.1.3.9. What you need to do is just make sure that you are on that 10.1.3 subnet. So you can use any number for that last number as long as it is not 3 or 5. We have other systems in our robots network that are on 3 and 5. So you can just use, like I have, 10.1.3.9. And then for that subnet mask, just enter in 255, 255, 255, and 0. So I'm going to hit OK here and close. And this is for a Windows system. If you have another system running Unreal Engine, you can go up and look up how to change those Ethernet adapter properties. Now that I have that set up, the hardware is physically set up to get those messages from Sisu Lab. I'm going to go into Unreal Engine and configure my project so that it can get these messages over Live Link as well. Now I'm over here in Unreal Engine, and I'm going to make sure that my project has the plugins enabled that I will need to use the Sisu Lab Live Link connection. So to do that, I'm going to go into Edit and then Plugins, and I'm going to enable a few different plugins. First of all, I'm going to search here for Live Link, and I need to make sure I have Live Link enabled, Live Link over End Display enabled if I'm going to be using an LED wall, and then Live Link Camera enabled for LED walls or green screens. So I have those all enabled. It may prompt you if they have been disabled. You may need to restart Unreal Engine. So I have all the Live Link ones enabled. The other thing that I need to enable is UDP messaging. This may already be enabled in your project, but also just make sure that that is enabled. So the Live Link plugin uses UDP messaging to communicate that information. And so now that I've enabled all those plugins, I'm going to set up the UDP messaging so that it knows where to look for those messages from Sisu Lab. So I'll go ahead and go back into Edit and then Project Settings. And I'm going to scroll down, and under my plugins, I'm going to look for UDP messaging. So I can see here, UDP messaging. I'll select that, and I will select Enabled by Default, and I will select Enable Transport, and then I will set up the unicast endpoint. And you can see here, the unicast endpoint is that IP address I just set up in my Ethernet adapter options, followed by :0. So you can see here it's 10.1.3.9:0. That's where you're gonna enter. If you used a different number, you would use that IP address there instead. Now that I have all of my Unreal Engine project settings configured, I'm gonna go ahead and close out my settings. You'll also notice that I have Z-axis up in this project. Sisu Lab is Z-axis up, so make sure that all your position information and rotation information are correct. You will also want your scene to have Z-axis up. I've got all my settings configured, and now let's actually make the connection. So first thing I'm gonna do is you can put in a camera actor. So I'm going to place in a new Cine Camera Actor into my scene, and he is called Cine Camera Actor 2. So I'm going to just leave him with that name right now. And the next piece that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up this Cine Camera Actor to connect to Sisu Lab and move with the robot. So here, I'm going to go in, I'm going to select Window, and then Live Link. And so right now, once I go under Source here, you'll see under Message Bus Source, I can actually see my Sisu Lab connection. So once I select Sisu Lab here, you'll see I've got my camera, and I had just turned on my connection in Sisu Lab. So I actually need to do a restart on Sisu Lab to make sure that that's enabled. So I'm going to quickly do a restart on Sisu Lab. So now that I've done that, what you'll notice before is we had the yellow dot here in the Live Link when I added that preset. Now that I've done that reset on a restart in Sisu Lab, you can see I am able to see on my Sisu Lab camera, I can see that green. So that lets us know I'm getting information from Sisu Lab. And if you'd ever want to double check if it's coming in or not, you can in this window select View Options and then Show Frame Data, and you can actually see it's getting information from Sisu Lab here. So I've added that, I've made sure it's in there in the Live Link window, and I'm actually going to save myself a lot of time in the future, and I'm gonna save this as a preset. So I'm gonna go under Presets here at the top, Save as Preset, and you can save this wherever you want in your Unreal Engine content folder. So I'm gonna call this Sisu Lab, Lab Live Link, and hit save. So now that I have that set up, I can actually connect the Sisu Lab Live Link connection together with my Cine camera actor that I added to my project. So my Cine camera actor, we can see here that I dropped in. I'm going to go under Add Component, and then I'm going to scroll down. It may just be easier to search here for Live Link Controller. So once I've selected this Live Link Controller, it'll take us to these camera properties here. And so under Subject Representation, I'm going to want to select what we can see here, which is my Sisu Lab camera, or I can actually select the preset that I just set up earlier. So now you can see when I select that, it populates this out as a camera roll. You should see that as camera roll. The component to control, you'll see the camera component, and then just make sure like things like the evaluate live link are on as well. And then under the transform role, you will also see Live Link Transform Controller. And then the camera roll as well, you will see Live Link Camera Controller. So if everything has been configured correctly up to this point, that is what you should see in the editor. And what you'll also notice is when I connected that up, my camera actually moved in the scene. And so now that I've connected this all together, we're getting information from Sisu Lab. I am going to be able to now take my controller here and take Sisu Lab, and as I move the camera up, you'll see it move up in our scene, and I can pull it back as well. You'll see another camera moving right now because I had set it up earlier to connect to Sisu Lab as well. So I'll push camera up again, and I can also do rolls, rotates, and all of that. So that is how you set up the basics of connecting a camera in Unreal Engine to Sisu Lab Live Link connection. And that will get you started with the basics. The next step from here is going to be working on coordinating where your robot is in space with your project and your LED wall. And so we're going to come out with another video with some of those nuances. Everyone does their configuration a little bit differently and has their scene set up a little differently. So we'll cover a few basics in a later video, but here's the basics of just setting up Sisu Lab, your hardware, and then your Unreal Engine project to live get data from Sisu Lab.